why critical thinking is disappearing in today's world, and how to escape the trap. Imagine waking up one day to discover that most people around you no longer question anything. The world has become so loud, so fast, and so saturated with information that the human mind, once a powerful tool for inquiry, discernment, and growth, has dulled into passive acceptance. Think about that. Think about what happens to a society where critical thinking vanishes, where the ability to reason, challenge, and reflect is replaced by instant reactions, surface-level opinions, and collective echo chambers. In this video, we are going to uncover the disturbing truth behind the disappearance of critical thinking and the dangerous rise of what some philosophers now call collective stupidity, a phenomenon where masses of people adopt shallow thinking, blindly accept narratives, and surrender their intellectual independence without even realizing it. And at the end of this journey, we will uncover the most powerful and urgent truth of all, one that could determine whether we reclaim our minds or lose them entirely to a system designed to keep us comfortably numb. But before we dive deep, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. The content you're about to experience may challenge your perceptions and even shake the very foundations of how you see the world. Share this with those who dare to think, and who still believe that truth is something worth seeking. The uncomfortable truth. Let's begin with an uncomfortable truth. Thinking is hard. And in today's world, it's often discouraged. The modern environment doesn't reward contemplation. It rewards speed, emotional response, and conformity. And this isn't by accident. From algorithms that feed you only what you want to hear, to educational systems that prioritize memorization over exploration, society is actively conditioning us away from critical thought. The philosopher Noam Chomsky warned us about this decades ago in his analysis of media and propaganda. He explained how power structures rely on what he called the manufacturing of consent. In other words, when people are trained to consume without questioning, to agree without understanding, they become easy to manage and even easier to deceive. Critical thinking, once considered a fundamental human skill, is now seen as inconvenient. It gets in the way of outrage culture. It slows down online debates. It challenges ideologies. It dares to ask, but is this really true? And in a world obsessed with being right, simply asking that question is seen as dangerous. How we got here. The problem runs deep. One of the key drivers is the information overload we all experience daily. According to neuroscientist Daniel Levitin, the average person today processes 5 times more information per day than they did just a few decades ago. We are bombarded with notifications, messages, breaking news, opinions, ads, and updates every waking moment. Our minds were not built for this kind of input. When the brain is overwhelmed, it takes shortcuts. It starts to rely on mental habits, cognitive biases, and groupthink to navigate complexity. Instead of evaluating ideas critically, it looks for cues from others, especially peers, influencers, or perceived authorities. This is called social proof. While it's a natural survival mechanism, it's also dangerously easy to manipulate. Think about how often you've seen an online post with thousands of likes and comments and assumed it must be true or important. That's not reason speaking, it's a psychological shortcut. And it's one of the reasons collective stupidity spreads so easily. Not because people are unintelligent, but because they're being conditioned to follow signals instead of reason. The decline of deep reading. Another disturbing trend is the decline of reading, especially deep reading. Neuroscientist Marianne Wolf describes how our brains are being rewired by digital media. We now skim more, jump between tabs, and struggle to maintain focus on longer texts. But here's the catch. Critical thinking requires sustained attention. You cannot analyze, reflect, or truly understand if your attention span is constantly fractured. Ask yourself, when was the last time you read an entire article without checking your phone? When was the last time you paused after hearing something provocative to think rather than react? These small habits, once common, are vanishing. Carl Sagan, one of the great minds of the 20th century, once warned, "We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology." His concern was not just ignorance, but the erosion of the ability to think critically about the very systems we depend on. In a world full of opinions, hot takes, and ideological warfare, The greatest rebellion is the quiet act of thinking clearly. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this with at least one person who still values independent thought. Because if we don't wake up now, we may never wake up at all.